Hey, it's Michael Sills from New Hunter Church of Christ within the news segment, the biblical view with real meaning of what's going on in your world today. Yes, I have my shirt on today. I wanted to tell you something. It really is troubling to see how the economy is starting to deepen in depression, and how there are a lot of warning indicators showing it's going to get a lot worse within the next 2 years, and that we could expect a rise in social unrest to a point where we never seen it like that before. No, in a very long time. We've had other times where this has happened, but it's going to get bad nationwide. Uh, the way things are looking, and the way that the government is trying to bolster these very movements through various groups, like we talked about in other videos, like the Black Panthers, for example, and ISIS, and these are groups that they have bolstered and have fortified, and they even openly admitted that they do support, on various news media outlets and things. Even President Obama has said those words. So it's important that you really start preparing and you really start prepping, because if they can sit there and accuse preppers and say things, but I would say I would do that. If you're any smart person, I mean, all the elite and all the government people, they're doing it. They're hunkering down. What are they hunkering down for? If there's not going to be any social unrest, and the news, as a question I want to ask, is saying that everything's okay and the economy's doing fine. Well, if that's the case, then what are the rich people of this country and what other people are, what are they hunkering down for and moving in places in the middle of the U.S.? Like in the Ozarks, for example. Why are they moving there? Why are they moving, in the Midwest in the United States, between the coast of California and the coast of, eastern coast of, the United States? Why are they moving to the middle part of the country? They must know something that they know that we don't know, that they're not sharing, and that's why they want to create all this false propaganda. So, it's going to be rough, but I think it's going to be hellish, and I think we're going to get through it because God is here and God's with us. But I don't think we're going to be, teleported out of here. No, I don't think so. A lot of churches teach that, but no. I think we're going to go through this, and yes, I think God will help those who help themselves. And how they do this by preparing and informing other people to do the same. And I think a preacher, as I am, like myself, I think that's what we need to essentially do as preachers, is get that word out, behind the pulpit in our churches and in the Church of Christ. Because this is a very serious and real thing that is going to hit America like a big wave. It's like I've always said when we're talking about inflation. We have hyperinflation is a term that we are starting to hear more about. Let's say like inflation, things go up normal, but hyperinflation is just like a thunderstorm that comes out of nowhere. An example would be like normally you buy a loaf of bread for $5, premium loaf of bread. Okay, that's what they go for right now, $5, $6 a loaf. Hyperinflation would be like you go to the store the next day to buy that same loaf of bread. Instead of being $5, it would be $30. That's what hyperinflation is. Okay, and that's what we're starting to see, inflation in this country, which is a sign of us going more and more into depression because things are getting more and more expensive. I mean, I'm looking at the same computer that would cost $800, 5 years ago, a brand new one. Now it costs around over $2,000. So for the same computer, but it's a better computer, but for what you're getting, that's what you got to pay to get. So and for the church here, and it's expensive. Electricity, oh my goodness. I mean, my bill used to be $80 a month. Now it's near $100 a month, and I don't have nothing more plugged in than what I usually do. It's just that electricity has gone up about $30, just within the last year or two, and that is absurd. I've never seen electricity hike. I've been paying electricity for a long time. I have not seen electricity spike that much. Because here I have a small 500 square foot apartment where we are. It's like a little studio, that's what I call it, and it's where I live as well. So that's why you see the coat on the chair right here in the background. But really, we have to be ready. I just don't want to neglect this issue. We have to prepare, and we have to inform other Christians, brothers and sisters, to do exactly the same. Buy guns, buy ammo, stock up on food, stock up on medical supplies, stock up on the essentials for you and your dogs and cats and your kids, your children, don't forget them. And flashlights, batteries, radios, all those things. And don't do that for a week, do it for about a year. You need to have enough supplies in your arsenal to cover you and maybe some other people in your community for a whole year, maybe more, because of the way things are going. And what I say is, people say, well, I can't afford it who live here. I've had people tell me that. I said, well, what you do is go to food banks. You can't afford it? Go to food pantries and food banks. Go to churches that give away food and just stock up. There's nothing wrong with it, because you're going to need it when there's a crisis. And you might be able to help other people a little bit. But remember, when you help other people, don't give away all your food. You always have to have enough food for you and your family. But always that's first. That's what God would say. And then help other people with extra. So you want to help other people, but don't make yourself starve in the process. Because you want to be hospitable, but you don't want to be foolish. So when I say is, when you are manager of a community storeroom, remember how I talked about that a while back? Starting up a community chest where people could give to it, clothing, essentials, medicine, food. This would be given to the whole community, so everybody could have access to it in a time of an emergency, like when civil unrest or a collapse of the economy happens. That's what that would be used for in those times. Not now. And now, of course, a lot of people give out food now, which is good. Churches have an overabundant amount of food they give out that they get from people like you and I, who put it in there to give to people who are less fortunate. That's good too. But you need to stock up, because the government is not going to take care of you. All right, we saw that with Katrina. We saw that what happened in New York when that big hurricane came through, whether it was engineered by controlled weather or whether it was a fluke storm or whatever. That was a horrible storm. It came through that big nor'easter Sandy, where it caused all that flooding, and a lot of people lost a lot of things and lost a lot of homes, and some people died. And, a lot of people were injured by that storm. But the thing is, we have to remember that Sandy could come again. But it might come in the form of a big earthquake. It may come in the form of a meteor hitting the earth. It may come in the form of a man-made disaster, like a nuclear attack or a war. I mean, there's a lot of nations talking about war. Like the Bible says, you'll hear rumors of wars, and real wars will be going on, which there are. And that's what we're seeing happening right now, I think that's the first trumpet of the 7 that we'll hear, is rumors of war, like Revelation talks about. We're like in the first or second trumpet that's been blowing, with these warnings about economic lows, about the moons, the Tayad moons, the red moons that we're seeing. We got another one coming up. It's been like about almost maybe 4 this year. We're going to be going into the 4th one that we're going to see. And every time we see that moon, that red moon, the Triad, there's always something that majorly happens after that, which we have seen. So, there is some biblical significance to that. I really say that, and I really mean that, because, I'm a preacher, and I think we should look at it. It's not all hocus pocus there, because every time that red moon is shown, that Triad moon, we've always had something majorly bad or something majorly, happen significant in the world. And there is a lot of truth to that. It's not superstition or, folklore. That's real. So, there's a lot of things to that Triad moon. We really look into it. As far as it being connected with, when I put that article out about the conspiracy of the end of the world, or what it plays, I don't think some of that stuff is true. That's why I put that out. But you need to really look into this and study it, preachers, because there's some real biblical truths and real biblical things about that, too. So, not all that stuff is baloney. Some of it really is true. But of course, a lot of it is conjecture too. So you have to kind of filter it, like everything, when you're behind the pulpit. But anyway, the news, this is just some of the news that's breaking. They will have their meeting, their Copenhagen, their annual meeting, Bilderberg meeting, will be happening in Europe somewhere, in that area, in London somewhere, in Europe somewhere in that area, like they always have it. And once we get the information, we will tell you where it's going to be, and we'll give you as we get the information, we'll give you what's going on and what they talk about. Like we do every year, we give you an analysis of that, just like the InfoWars does, the show does. Alex Jones, affiliate of ours, does a very good job with that as well. So we'll be talking about this too, and sharing some information as it becomes available. So just stay tuned, support us, give, donate, subscribe. It's a red little button below this video. Click on it, it turns white. That means you're subscribed. Tell people about us. Spread the word about independent media. Spread the word about New Hunter Church of Christ. And spread the word about the Silva's Media That's my Christian computer and IT business, and that's another way that you can give the support by giving me work. And if you need a youth minister or a preacher at a church, if you're looking for someone that's nearby and you don't mind giving me a ride to pick me up and take me home, please give me a call, 804-789-9373. If you don't mind that and you love people like I do, there are ways to make things happen. I know a lot of times we have excuses, or we'll try to say, well, that's a skill set. Well, yeah, it may be a skill set, but that should not be a criterion to turn someone away when they're able to do a job like I can do. Just because I can't drive does not mean I can't do the job. So, I think that's a skill set that's unnecessary. I think there are other ways that can be accommodated through other people doing that. And they can drive and they can get a little stipend for gas in their time. In some cases where the preacher can't drive, like the ones I was telling you about in the video, I was telling you about the two totally blind ordained, evangelists or ministers who are in the Church of Christ. They are totally blind, okay, and they work in Tidewater. There's one in California, and they do a wonderful job, and I know them. I went to school with them, the deaf and blind, and they're really good preachers today. And they have churches of over 400 members, so they don't see a lick, but they are right on their stuff. They're very good preachers. I mean, some of these, what I've heard them preach would probably blow a lot of sighted ministers the way they preach away, because they're just so detailed and so impactful, and they really have a heart and a genuine feel when they do it. And that's what they say about blind people. They usually have a lot of compassion, and they really have a lot of love for people, more so than those who are not sighted. Not trying to say nothing bad, but it's true. A lot of people that are sighted kind of take this stuff for granted. But when you don't have something, you tend to, appreciate it more. And that's what we see, here, and that's what's going on, and with them. So it may be a prerequisite for some churches, but I think if there was more love in the church and there was more Jesus in the church thinking, then I think a lot of these prerequisites, some of them, that are, erroneous, could be worked out through other ways and avenues, and it should not always be put on the preacher. But anyway, this is the news, and let me know what you think, and I'll love you. Take care. Shalom. Bye for now.